Good evening, you to the tube. Back again with more stuff. I've been a busy boy lately in all sorts of ways. And so before my collection of recently completed stuff built up too high, I thought I would get another video done. So, getting right into it. First thing that is up is I recently finished watching Volume 2 of the Power Rangers in Space series or season, I guess, as they're because every season of Power Rangers is a different version of Power Rangers. So this is the second half of the Power Rangers in Space season. I did a video, I guess it would have been a few of them ago, on the first volume. So this is another 3-disc collection, contains the last, I think, 21 episodes of the second season. Starts off on kind of a lighter note when Astronema and the Silver Ranger Zane find out they have feelings for each other, and then some other things like Carlos loses his confidence when he accidentally injures Cassie during a battle, and more lighthearted stuff like that. But then as it gets closer to the end of the season, like, we learn that Astronema is actually Andros's long lost sister Carone, who he's been desperately searching for so long. So he has to find a way to get her back. When he finally does, Dark Spectre recaptures her, and they brainwash her into becoming evil again. There's these new kind of the anti-Power Rangers called the Psycho Rangers that enter the scene and battle the Power Rangers and are really effective against them. So, and then eventually the Mega Voyager and the Delta Mega Ship or Megazord or whatever are both destroyed. So things are looking bleaker and bleaker as the season gets closer to a finale. And in the last 2 episodes, it's a 2-part thing where, like, it's like the culmination of all the seasons that came before it, because it's like the bad guys finally decide, okay, now is the time where we're gonna put our stranglehold on the universe. So it's Dark Spectre, Astronema, Divatox, Rita. All of the head bad guys are kind of planning a coordinated strike across the universe, and all their minions go out and subjugate everybody and capture everybody. And they're only saved when the people of Earth, kind of being inspired by the Power Rangers' past deeds and stuff, rise up against their captors and take the fight back to them. So, and then while all that's going on, Andros heads up to the fortress to try and talk to Astronema and turn her back to being good again, to try and reverse everything that's going on. So, and of course they succeed, because there wouldn't be another season of Power Rangers if they didn't succeed. But yeah, it was a really cool finale. I thought having all the bad guys in that final battle was really cool to see them all do that. So that was the first thing. Next up, now that I finally saw Endgame, I could finally watch this. Spider-Man Far From Home. Awesome movie. The Spider-Man movies are so good. And this was kind of cool because it was after Endgame. So it kind of had this vibe of, like, still a healing thing going on. So as the movie starts up, Nick Fury and Maria Hill are in a small village in Mexico somewhere, investigating some sort of, like, post-storm disturbance, a disaster. And they're told by the locals that the storm had a face. And not long afterwards, they get there and they investigate. The storm comes back, and it's not a storm. It's some sort of weird monster made out of nature. As this thing attacks, though, an unidentified superhero arrives on the scene. He's wearing, like, a green suit, and he has this, like, fishbowl head that is cloudy, but then it opens up and it's a dude inside. And he fights it off, and then the story shifts over to New York, where Peter Parker is in high school right near the end of the term, and things are weird because, I guess, Endgame, when the Avengers reversed the damage Thanos did, that happened 8 months prior to where we are in this story. So they basically restarted the school year because all the people that came back, they just restarted everything for those people and did everything all over again. But the thing is, everything's weird because the people who died during the snap but came back in the blip are still the same age. whereas the people that stayed alive the whole time are now 5 years older. So everybody's like, everything's off. And Peter doesn't like this because a runt at his school named Brad is now the same age as him, and he has the hots for MJ. And Peter's like, come on. But he has a grand scheme because they're doing a year-end trip to Europe for his class, and he's got a big plan to lay out all of his feelings to MJ at the top of the Eiffel Tower. Now, before the trip, Peter finds out a couple of disturbing things. First, his Aunt May and Happy Hogan seem to be dating, which makes him want to barf. And then the other thing is that he gets a call from Nick Fury, which he does not answer because he does not want to be dragged into Avengers stuff and have his trip ruined, which is so important to him just for the MJ thing. So, they go on the trip. Nick Fury keeps calling him. He keeps ignoring it. Eventually, Nick Fury catches up to him, takes him to a shield stronghold somewhere in Europe. I forget where they are when this happens. Venice, I think it is. And introduces him to this superhero that fought off that weird storm thing earlier in the movie. And his name is Quentin Beck, and he is from another version of Earth. That is, I don't know if it's a multiverse sort of thing or whatever, but he explains that this storm, this Earth storm that he fought off, was actually what he calls an elemental. And there are 4 of them, and they will ravage the Earth and destroy it if not held in check. He's already destroyed the earth, air, and water elemental, but the most powerful one, fire, is still left over, and it's set to strike somewhere in Prague, I think it is, in the very near future. But Peter's like, I'm out. I'm a kid. I want a normal life. I got this trip going on. MJ, good luck. They let him go. The next day, his school trip's been upgraded to reroute to Prague. So Nick Fury's not letting it go. And finally, Spider-Man gets dragged into the mess, and they fight off the fire elemental. And after the battle, him and Quentin are talking in a pub, and Peter's like, you know what, I'm done. And earlier in the trip, Peter had been gifted a pair of Tony Stark glasses, which gives him like access to his Edith system, which is this like super high-tech system that commands all sorts of drones and missiles and all of this high-tech stuff. And he says, you know what, I'm not the next Tony Stark. I'm not a leader. You are. You take these glasses. So then Peter just goes about the rest of the trip as he was always planning to. And as him and MJ talk and go out for a walk, and she suspects he's Spider-Man, they find a piece of evidence that points to the fact that Quentin Beck is not necessarily who he says he is. Peter realizes he's made a grave mistake. Who he thought was a nice new friend in the superhero community is actually a bad guy. And so then he's got to kind of reverse the danger he's caused to the Earth and its population. And the end of it is just a battle to set things back to right. So awesome movie, lots of great action, lots of funny stuff, of course, because it's a Spider-Man movie. And I can't wait to see, like, not only for the next Spider-Mans and stuff, but all the next Marvel movies that move forward, how they treat what happened in Endgame. Excuse me, late. Because this movie definitely had like a somber feel to it at times when, because Peter was really upset about the death of Tony Stark, because most people came back during the blip, but you know, Black Widow is dead, Tony Stark is dead, and so it had this kind of, you know, memorial kind of aspect to it or whatever. So I'm curious to see how the other movies treat everything that happened in Endgame, because this is all now kind of a new reboot, but at the same time not. Like, everything that happened and it's still going to be part of it, but it's kind of the start of a new era after all that stuff. So I'd be curious to see where all the rest of these Marvel movies that are coming out soon are going to kind of treat that and pay attention to that. So next up, a movie I've wanted to see for a long time as well. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. So this is a follow-up to the Godzilla movie of 2014. It focuses on a family that suffered a great loss during the Godzilla attacks of 2014 in San Francisco. Dr. Emma Russell, her husband Mark, and their daughter Madison, they lost their son and brother, young Andrew, during the Godzilla events of 2014, and they have all had their struggles coping with that. So Emma and Madison are living in China at the site of a Titan that hasn't been born yet. And meanwhile, Mark is off in the American wilderness somewhere studying the habits of wolves. Emma has come up with a device called Orca, which simulates, I guess, sounds and communications to these massive creatures they call Titans, and is hoping that she can communicate with them and soothe them and ultimately control them. And that's what the organization she works for, Monarch, is hoping as well. They don't want to destroy these creatures. They want to, especially the ones they feel that are good, work alongside them almost, and live alongside them, and have them be part of the world in a non-threatening, destructive kind of way. So this Titan in China that hasn't been born yet, it is about to be hatched, and when it does, it starts freaking out, and it's just about to bust loose when Emma finally gets her Orca device to do its job. It soothes the beast, and everybody's like, we got a breakthrough, right? Like, this is huge for moving forward with all these Titans, which are apparently all over the globe. There's tons of them. Unfortunately, just after this happens, a ex-British Army guy named Alan Jonah, I think it is, raids the base with his team and kill everybody except Emma and Madison, and then whisk them away with the Orca device. And in the meantime, this Titan, dubbed Mothra, escapes. They then head to Antarctica, to where Monster Zero, is what they call it, is housed dormant in a block of ice, and it's this big three-headed dragon kind of thing. Meanwhile, Mark Russell has been notified that his wife and daughter have been kidnapped by this group, and so he gets picked up by Monarch, and they go about trying to get them back. While they're at their base, the Monarch base and underwater base, they finally get some action from Godzilla, who hasn't been seen publicly in a long, long time. And he's exhibiting very weird, threatening behaviors, and when they study the path of where he's going to be going, he seems to be heading to Antarctica, the same place where Alan Jonah and his team of mercenaries are going. So Monarch takes off for Antarctica, and they almost catch up to the team, but as a battle ensues, a bit of an ambush inside the facility where Monster Zero is housed. Emma is actually the one who presses the trigger on the explosive device that frees Monster Zero, and when it gets loose, it starts raining down destruction like you haven't seen. It's just burning up everything in sight. And as the two teams finally escape, they're not as big in number as they were when they got there. There's a lot of casualties. As each team flies off in their own direction, Emma gets in touch with Monarch afterwards and explains her position, saying that she freed Monster Zero, and they plan on freeing all of the other unborn Titans because the Earth is overpopulated. War, pollution, all that stuff is ravaging the planet. She feels that setting these monsters loose is going to be a way of resetting that, of controlling the population. She feels that where these monsters pillage and burn and whatever, new growth will come in behind it, and the Earth will regenerate itself, and it'll be somewhat of a balance for Earth, much like Thanos thought he was balancing Earth when he killed all those people, right? Meanwhile, all the people at Monarch and Mark too are like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're crazy, woman. And even Madison is like, Mom, like, I thought you were doing a noble thing here, and you're actually up to this. So the rest of the movie is them trying to stop Emma and this team of crazies from releasing all these Titans, and but once Monster Zero's loose, it's kind of hard. All the other ones start waking up and are drawn to this thing. But Godzilla, though, has proven that he is arch rivals with this three-headed monster, which they've dubbed King. Oh, it's some weird word, King Gideon or something. I don't know. I forget. But and they also surmise that this three-headed dragon thing is actually not of the Earth like the other Titans are. It's an alien being, so it's got these other powers that are even more devastating than the other Titans. So alongside Godzilla, they try and take it down in the end, and it's a formidable job to undertake, so you'll have to watch to see how it ends up. Love the movie, love the effects, love the story. I love big monster movies like Pacific Rims and stuff like that, and all these Godzilla movies. Like, I love that shit. And what I also loved about this movie is that it's tying in Kong Skull Island into the timeline with this. So it's like they're almost creating this little monster verse, you know. So I hope they keep it going and even bring in some new stuff too, because I love it. I love the continuity with all these things and them all kind of intertwining and stuff. So really neat. I really like the movie. Last thing is 2 video games. First up is just a wee little game, Tom and Jerry the movie for Sega Game Gear. The story of this one, I loved Tom and Jerry as a kid. Like, growing up, I watched a ton of Tom and Jerry. And the only thing is, other than the cartoon, they really never branched off and merchandised much. Like, I don't remember any toys ever. This is the only video game I've ever seen, so I had to get it. And so it was cool to get it because, I mean, there's so little Tom and Jerry stuff out there other than the show that it's nice to kind of have this little piece of it. So the story is that Tom one day finds a treasure map, but Jerry swipes it from him. So then Tom spends the entirety of the game going after Jerry to get his treasure map back and then claim this treasure. There's 5 levels in total. You just chase Jerry through each level and avoid the little traps he sets for you. And at the end of each level, there's some sort of a boss, usually a creature of some sort, that you have to beat before you get your hands on Jerry, but he escapes again into the next level. So 5 levels, you beat all 5, you get your treasure map, and Tom is off on his adventure to see if there's actually a treasure to be had. Fun game. I really liked it, and it was actually it was challenging enough. It wasn't hard or anything like that, but you didn't just waltz through it either. You really had to figure out how to beat each boss, you know, get used to how to avoid certain types of traps and stuff like that. But the only downside to this game is that it is so short. Like, literally you can beat all 5 levels in 15 minutes, give or take. So now it takes a long time to get there because you have to figure out each boss on each level, sort of thing. So, but once you finally put all the pieces together, literally 15 minutes and you're done the game. So it is pretty short, but you know, this one was $8. So, but still, for $8, worth it. Last thing, the original MotorStorm game for the PS3. So this game is kind of about this group of race enthusiasts and nature enthusiasts, I guess, who create this circuit out in the desert, and yeah, you just go out and race and try and make it through. They have all these events that you have to like earn a ticket to get into them, and each ticket has between usually 2 to 4 of race events that you can participate in, and if you beat all of them, you unlock the next ticket, yada yada, that sort of thing. And each event has restrictions on what kind of vehicle you can use. Sometimes you're forced to use a certain type, and other times you're forced to use between a few different types, and then not so often, but sometimes you can use any of the types available. So there's like ATVs, motorbikes, dune buggies, mud pluggers, racing cars, big trucks. There's all sorts of stuff. So and they all, of course, have their advantages and disadvantages. I like the game. It was a lot of fun. It looks great. It plays great. It was just a lot of repetition. As you got into the game later on, it was just like, it got harder and harder each race, but it didn't get any different. It was the same old tracks. It was the same old vehicles. There was no real unlocks or anything along the way to keep it interesting. You couldn't upgrade the cars or change them at all to at least make it a little interesting and try and, you know, make yourself a little better than the competition. So it did get repetitious and just kind of like, okay, I'm ready for this game to be over now, right? So that was too bad. But overall, still a really fun game to play, and well worth it. And I know that there's at least 3 other games in the MotorStorm series, because I've bought a few other ones used at Game Cycle as well, which I haven't played yet. I just thought I would go through them from the start to the finish. So I'm hoping that after this first game, maybe they got some feedback like that. Like, you need to make it a bit more kind of replayable, right? Like, throw something in there to keep it, fresh as you move through the game, and not so repetitious and kind of one-dimensional. So I'll be very interested to see if the future games, if they're any different, or if they just kind of follow the same formula, and they don't really do anything. So, but we'll find out soon enough. I'll hopefully start the second game, whichever one it is, I forget, in the near future, in the next month or so. And yeah, we'll see what it's like. So until the next time I'm doing something, have a great week coming up.